Hi, hello, it's Nikki, and welcome to my messy bookshelves. Today I'm here to share 10 of the books that I plan on reading finally in 2025. I've seen a lot of people posting 25 books that they want to read in 2025, and I think that's too many for me because I will not read them. I purposely kept my goal for the year, my count, low this year in case, I exceed it, that's great, but if not, 25 would be half of that goal. So I am purposely keeping it to 10 and actually 9, and you will see in a moment why. But these are books, most of which are TBR veterans on my shelves. There are one or two that are fairly new, maybe within the last year or two, but some of them have been on my shelves for years. So we are finally going to get to these books, or at least give it the good old effort, A for effort. We will try that this year. So I think I will get started with this one. And when I planned to film this video, this was a book that was on the list, and that is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. However, in the 2 weeks since that has happened, I got sucked into this book. I opened it, read the first few lines, and I kept reading. And then I kept reading. And I am now on the last few pages of this book. So I am fairly certain I know how she wanted this to end. And this has been one that's been on my shelf for ages. And I only avoided it because I was worried about the fact that it was unfinished. However, this worked because the only thing that's missing is the last chapter where she is tying up all the loose ends. So you kind of know how she wanted it to finish. So, or at least I believe so. I mean, we can still be surprised, I guess, in the last couple pages, but I am loving it. And this was one of the 10. But yeah, I will be done with this today. So I have 9 more books to show you that I plan on reading in 2025, or at least attempting to read. And I have noticed that most of these are fairly chunky, but there are one or two that are not so bad. So the first one that I have here is Maya by Justine Garter. And this is the same author who wrote Sophie's World and The Solitaire Mystery, which I also loved, and The Christmas Mystery. And I love this author, but this book I have never read, and it's been on my shelves for years, probably 10 years this book has been on my shelf. And this book, I think I have been worried about it not holding my interest as much as the other books have. The other ones that I have read, seemingly unrelated things, have such amazing little intertwining layers, and I don't know how he manages to do that. But this one, it says that there are strangers on an island that are only on the same island for 3 days, and we are reading about how their stories intertwine. So I was like, I don't know how well that could work, but I mean, I am willing to give it a shot, and I have loved everything else. So I think it's time to finally get to this, and I will be reading Maya this year. So I have to like it. I've liked everything else. I sincerely hope that it is a success like everything else was. The next thing is one of the newer ones on my shelf, and this is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. And this is one that I just have always heard so many people talking about. I know there was a read-along this past year. I think it was Ellen and Kat that were reading this, and I just didn't get to it. And I really do want to read this one. I don't know too much about it, but I do know it's supposed to be relatively sad. And it is a book about a young woman from Korea and all the tragedies that have happened to her in her life. Or so I believe. But this is one that I really want to read. I've been hearing about this book for years, and I bought it this past year and I didn't get to it. So would like to finally get that off of my TBR. The next one is Shogun by James Clavell, and this is when I started reading This particular copy is new on my shelves, but I have had another copy on my shelves in the past. And I actually left it somewhere when I was reading it. So this is one that, like I said, I had started reading. I got a little grossed out by a scene and I had set it down, and I think it was at work, and I was taking it to work, and I left it there, forgot about it, and it is gone. But it is one that I would definitely like to finish. And this is about Imperial Japan, and I think it's Portuguese sailors that come across them, or European sailors that make contact with this unknown to them culture of feudal Japan. So that's what I remember of it, and it is one that I was enjoying, but I remember setting it down after a nasty scene had happened. But I do want to finish that, and hopefully this will be the year for that. The next one is one that I don't know if I'll ever finish this, but I need to give it the old try, or I need to get rid of it. And it is The House of Leaves. I know people have heard about this book, and this is by Mark Danielewski. And all I know is that this book is supposed to be very incredibly hard to read, and it is all kinds of funky with the formats, and like different fonts, and some pages only have a couple of words on them. So it's supposed to be very trippy, and I thought that I would enjoy that, but I just didn't get into it. And so many people have talked about how intimidating this book was for them, so it started to intimidate me, and it has been sitting unloved on my shelf. Not unloved, I love all the books on my shelves, but it has been sitting neglected on my shelves for the better part of a decade. It has been since my daughter was a baby, and she is now 8 years old. So yeah. The next one, finally we got a baby one, and that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And this one, who doesn't know The Great Gatsby? I have been avoiding this book for some reason, and I don't know why. It is the shortest one here in my stack, and it is one that I just don't know why I haven't read it. I think maybe because the 20s has never been an era that is the most interesting to me, and I just love reading Victorian literature, or, you know, further back than the 20s. So this is the story of a rich gentleman in New York City, and he falls in love with a beautiful young woman, and I believe she marries someone else, and that is all I know. And it's supposed to be full of New York high society in the 20s, so we will see. But I will get to, it's short enough. I have to be able to get through this fairly quickly. So finally, I would like to get to this one, because again, this is one that has been on my list for years, over 5 years, and I think I've had this copy at least a couple of years. So we're gonna get to some of these books this year. The next one is one that is relatively new to my stack, and I started reading it, and it is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I bought it after I read Piranesi this last year, and I just got sidetracked with so many other things. But this year, we're going to be more organized. At least I hope so. So, it's still January. I can still have my, goals for the year. But yes, this was one, it was interesting. It was, it seemed like dark academia, or academia and magic. So I feel like I am going to enjoy this, but I only got a few chapters in, so I'm not sure. I will probably start this over. So it's been several months since I tried reading it, so I want to get to this one this year. There was nothing wrong with it other than the fact that I was disorganized and had so many other things going at the same time. This next one is probably my nemesis in the book world, and I just don't know why I can't get through this book, and we are going to give it the old try here, and that is Moby Dick. I don't know what it is about this book. I can't get past the first chapter. Like, I can never get past the first chapter. And I feel like if I get past the first chapter, I might actually be interested, because it is adventure on the high seas, and that is something that I have always enjoyed. So yes, this is the one. If I can get through this one, I will be a happy woman. Or at least get past the first chapter and, you know, read further on to decide if I actually don't like this book. But this, I don't know what it is. So, some help, some people who love this book, please give me encouragement, because this is one that I really want to finally read. It has been on my classics I want to read list for a very, very long time. And I don't know how many times I've started reading this book and always tapered off somewhere in the first chapter, so. But yeah, moving on. The next book, and this is, we only have 2 books left. The next one is Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy, and this is one I did start reading, and I was enjoying it. But like I do, I got distracted and I stopped reading it. It was very slow in the beginning, which is not necessarily a bad thing. A woman running a farm, and there is a worker who is in love with her, and I have only made it to, you know, the relatively slow parts, the running of the farm, etc. But allegedly it's supposed to, from what I know, supposed to get pretty scandalous. So I am looking forward to getting into this one. Nothing wrong with it when I was reading it, but just didn't get through it. And then the last one is not this whole giant book, but it is one of the 3 that is in here, and that is The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, and it is the only one of the 3 included in this book that I have not read, and it's actually one that is on my classics list, which I will share. I am still compiling a new list from the list I made back in 2016. But yes, The Age of Innocence, high society, New York in the early 1900s, or is it the late 1800s? But that's all I know about it. But I've liked the other 2 that I have read by her, so looking forward to this one. And this book, this particular book, I have owned for about 8 or 9 years, and I would like to finally get to the last book in here. So that is my fairly lofty goal here, but that's why I only picked 10, and hopefully we'll get to at least half of these this year. These are books I want to read in 2025, so please let me know if you have any books like this, especially if you have any books like this to you that you just can't seem to get through, because this is it for me. But I thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.